So closing us today is Moon Pisano from Enterprise, and he'll be telling us about their unique culture and how they're driving deep and meaningful connections through the work that they do with employees, as well as a focus on their brand. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Brittany. Well, in response to Sean Kaler this morning, I want to start out by saying to all of you, I love you. What I'd like to do is really give you a little bit of information on Enterprise, and then I want to focus on three pieces. Number one is how we go about engaging our workforce. Number two is some of the methodologies we use to engage our customer population. And then number three, and most importantly, is how do we connect the two of those things to drive customer loyalty, which is ultimately what's going to drive our return business, and probably like for all of you, it's what your leadership wants, is how are the things you're doing each and every day contributing to the success of the overall organization. So as you look at Enterprise Holdings, some of these brands are probably familiar to you: Alamo, Enterprise, National, WeCar. We also do a variety of other transportation components. We have a car sharing service, we have Zimride, we can lease vehicles through our fleet management division, we rent exotics, we rent trucks, we sell cars. As an organization, we look at this and think, we are a total transportation solution. Regardless of what your needs are, personally or business, we can provide that to you. I want to flavor in a little additional information on Enterprise. At a glance, we're an organization annually that exceeds $20 billion in revenue. We're fast approaching 100,000 employees in our workforce. We have over 9,600 locations at airport and neighborhoods, as well as we operate the largest fleet of passenger vehicles in the world. We currently have about 1.9 million vehicles across the globe. Something you may not know is we have a rich history when it comes to the military. Today, nearly 13% of our workforce is made up of active military and reservists. Our name, in fact, Enterprise, is there because our founder, Jack Taylor, flew off of the USS Enterprise in World War II. So we have a rich military legacy. We are one of the largest recruiters annually of college graduates in the US, and we're number 15 on Forbes' largest privately held companies. But most importantly, and what we're probably most proud of, is that our brands, the Enterprise, National, and Alamo, annually continue to be the highest ranking in customer service in our industry. And what most people associate with Enterprise generally is we're a customer service organization. If you want to rent a car, buy a car, lease a car, there are plenty of providers that do that. The question is, what level of service are you expecting along the way? And we believe that's what differentiates us. And I give you all that background because what I want to talk about and how we go about engaging our employees, you have to understand the magnitude of the size of our organization. And even though we're an incredibly large organization, we're also run very decentralized. So not a lot comes from the top of the corporation other than overall expectations, but it's really about how our employees and our local management team live up to those things. The primary factor that drives our engagement of our employees would be our founding values. There's no question about it. They are woven into the fabric of who we are and what we do. And it begins with our brand. One of our values is our brands are the most valuable things that we own. And there's no replacing that. Our values also shape our behavior, how our employees behave with one another, with our customers, with our vendors, et cetera. And it's also how we hold ourselves accountable as an organization. So it really is the fabric and the foundation of who we are and what we do, regardless of the business line that I showed earlier. But beyond our values, it also comes down to how we connect with our employees. And I've got just a brief sampling of some of the ways that we do this in a very localized fashion. The first is, it could be something as basic as, at a rental branch, our managers conduct daily huddles. That means in the morning, the manager will gather his or her employees, and they'll talk about what the goals for the day are. Individual goals, team goals, identify what maybe the reservations look like. Is somebody going to be out in training? Is somebody on vacation? And this really becomes a dynamic of two-way communication. It's also the employee sharing with the manager what his or her thoughts are. We also conduct monthly PDMs, that's a performance development meeting. And this is a formal setting where our managers will sit down individually with his or her employees and talk about the progress they made toward the goals from the prior month's PDM, as well as identify goals with the employee for the coming month. And then together they will build action steps that the employee is going to implement aimed at achieving those goals over the course of the month. Not uncommon with most companies, we also have defined positional training programs, regardless of the role you serve in at Enterprise. There will be a training program to help you develop the skills necessary to be successful in that capacity. And then we also focus heavily on stay surveys. There's a lot of value in conducting exit interviews, but our belief is when you're conducting that exit interview, the employee has already left. So instead of waiting for them to leave, identify the times that they're most vulnerable to leave, conduct stay surveys, and then figure out, with the help of the employee, what's going really well, what do they like, what do they dislike, and then with the employee, identify solutions to help them maybe move through the obstacles or make some changes that will be beneficial to both them and the business. But again, what's most critical in this component here is it has to be two-way communication. It's not about a manager simply explaining to the employees what must occur. We involve our employees in that as well. Of course, we conduct surveys. We have a company-wide survey, and this is also aimed at strengthening the engagement we have with our employees. It's a very typical survey. It has our demographic data, but more importantly, in addition to what we do at a company level, we also conduct pulse surveys. So through our partnership with Kantar TNS, we're able to look at both the annual survey, the large company-wide survey, as well as our pulse surveys, and identify a decentralized approach on how we can address those obstacles that the local operation might be facing. The challenges that our operation here in San Francisco is facing could be vastly different from what's happening up in Portland, Oregon, or in Dallas, Texas, or in any other part across the country. So it's local priorities that will be personalized to have maximum impact on our local operation. There's also another way that we look at it, which might be a little bit different, and that is, not only do we survey our employees, but it's equally important to us that we disseminate the results of our survey to all employees. It's not enough just to conduct the survey, you also have to share it with them. So we gather our employees, we share the results, and then it turns into a dialogue with our employees to help us understand what do the survey results really mean. Interpreting results oftentimes is in the eye of the beholder. How one group of employees understands the results could be vastly different from another group. So we don't pretend to have the answers ourselves. We utilize our employees to explain what they mean, and then our employees are also intimately involved in identifying solutions to whatever those problems are. It is not about a manager looking at an employee population and saying, here's what I think it's going to take to be successful. It's about a dialogue because our employees are the ones who are going to have to live through those challenges and implement and execute the steps to be successful. So it is definitely a two-way component. When we talk about the second component here, it really comes down to the customer connection. And as an organization, we conduct several 100,000 surveys a year of our customers. And in its most basic format, we're trying to do two things. Number one is we want to identify through our service quality index, where are the deficiencies in the service that we provide? Once we identify those deficiencies, we can again work with our employees and identify ways to overcome those deficiencies, fill the holes in our service. And number two, when we identify the desired outcomes, we want to make sure we're reinforcing those same things. So again, think that local branch manager spending time with his or her employees and correcting the areas where we're not performing and reinforcing the areas where we are performing. And all this comes down to how do we connect the employee survey with the customer survey, because ultimately we're trying to drive brand loyalty. And recently we had some research conducted for us by Millward Brown, and this is what we learned. For the first time, we can look at the data and say we have empirical evidence which directly connects the engagement level of our employees with how our customers feel about our organization and whether or not they're going to return. So what the data showed us is what you see here. If we provide friendly, knowledgeable employees, and they're able to exceed our customer expectations, and when we look at those two components, to us that screams employee engagement. If that is occurring, the data shows us that our customers will feel valued and they're going to become a trusted brand. We're going to become a trusted brand. So we look at this in the perspective of, from an HR standpoint, how do we partner with our operators to ensure that they understand what engagement really means? It's not about a fancy phrase. It's not about a series of meetings. It's really about a dialogue with your employees and your customers that directly connects to how it's going to impact the bottom line of the business. And I think when you're able to take that data and share that with your leadership team, whether it be the highest levels of executives or the lowest levels in your day-to-day frontline operators, and they can see that engagement leads to a trusted brand and grow their business, you have an ear and a partner for life.